Hello, everybody. Today I wanted to give a little video that I actually want you to participate in. We're going to kind of test our brain a little bit and see if we can practice and get better at identifying whether a variable is nominal, ordinal, interval, or ratio. This is something that you don't want to just kind of get through this week because each lab that we have, we're always going to need to do this. This is something that it's sort of like learning addition or subtraction for math. It's something that's always a part of doing any sort of analysis or understanding what it is that we're talking about when we're mentioning variables. It is also something that a lot of people don't get right away. It actually can take weeks or months before it becomes natural. Personally, I had a little cheat sheet next to me that was sitting right on my desk, and I had little notes that I could remind myself to help identify which one was nominal, which one was ordinal, which one was interval or ratio. Um, and I don't say that because it's impossible. I say that because it's just really normal to feel like, what are they talking about? It's normal to be a little confused. This isn't memorization. It's something you have to stop and kind of think about. So it's different than a lot of the other things that we learn. What I want you to do with this video is I want you to pull out a piece of paper and I'm going to show you a slide. I want you to write down what's on the slide and whether you think it is nominal, ordinal, interval, or ratio. You're not getting graded on it. You're not getting tested on it. But if you don't pull out that piece of paper and you don't write it down, then our brain kind of goes, oh, it could be this or this or this. We really don't commit to anything. So I think it's really, really important that you actually write it down because then we're going to go back over it and I will give the answers, the correct answers. So let's actually see where you're at on this or how good your guessing is or how good your knowledge is. All right, so get out a piece of paper, get out a pen, and you can always pause in between if you need a little more time. So get the pause button ready. So we are going to be identifying variables. Now, keep in mind that nominal and ordinal are both considered qualitative or categorical, and that's because that the possible responses that that question or that variable has, the responses are categories. Nominal are categories that are not in an order, like a yes response or a no response or a green or blue or yellow, like they're in a category, but they're not in any order. Whereas ordinal are responses that have an order to them, a Likert scale, very sad, slightly sad, not sad at all. There's an order to that. Um, what else? If I a small, medium, large, there's an order to that, but they're not really numbers, right? It's not if we're looking at the size of someone's foot, we can either say they're size 10 or size 11 or size 12. Those would be numerical. Or we could say, though, they have small feet or medium feet or large feet. So that's those categories of small, medium, large would be ordinal because they're categories. Whereas if we said size 5, size 7, size 9, size 12, that would be in the quantitative or interval or ratio because the measure is numeric and the numbers represent themselves and they are able to be used in mathematical computation. I'll get a little more into that. So nominal and ordinal, qualitative or categorical. Interval and ratio are referred to as quantitative. Sometimes you'll see the word continuous. Sometimes you'll see the word scale. In working with Jamovi, they will consider both of these to be continuous because that scale is continuous. That does not mean it is infinite. It does not mean it goes on forever. If we ask everybody what their height is, people are not 37 feet tall. The scale can have, and people can't be less than 0 feet tall. So there are logical starts and stops, but it is continuous such that 3 feet plus 3 feet equals 6 feet. Each measure between each number is an equal distance and it is a known distance. With ordinal, we really don't know the difference between small and medium or medium and large. It is more subjective. So hopefully that's a little background. Ratio is continuous or quantitative, but it actually has a zero that has a meaning. The zero, a meaningful zero, what that says is that zero is the absence of something. It is not just a placeholder between -1 and 1 or between 1 and 12, like we see on a clock. All right, let's try this out. Let's see how good we are at deciding or guessing, either one. So if you asked 1,000 people what their phone number was and they all put down their phone number and that was the data, that was the variable you had was phone numbers, would that data for all of those people, would that be nominal, ordinal, interval, or ratio? So on your sheet of paper, write down phone numbers, dash, and then what do you think? Nominal, ordinal, interval, or ratio? And again, if you need to pause, just hit the pause button, and then you can unpause it. And I am going to move on. What about leap years? What if we were interested in something that happened during leap years and all of the data was a leap year of 2008, 2012, 2016, 2020, 2024, 1900 and something. All right, I'm going to move on. So write down leap years and write down your guess if it's nominal, ordinal, interval, or ratio. Dental bills. We asked 10,000 people how much money they spent on dental bills last year, and all of their answers or their responses would be what kind of data? Would that variable of the dental bills that we asked, would that be nominal, ordinal, interval, or ratio? I'm going to go to the next. Exam scores. These are scores that are between 0 and 100. And all entering freshmen took an exam and they got a score between 0 and 100. Would that variable be nominal, ordinal, interval, or ratio? All right, I'm going to go to the next. So what if we asked everybody to read a book and then they had to rate that book as great, good, fair, or bad? Would that be nominal, ordinal, interval, or ratio? I'm going to go to the next one. How about if we asked everybody the number of fast food items they had eaten the week before? And everyone answered, and their responses were given. Would those responses for that variable, would that variable be nominal, ordinal, interval, or ratio? We have a few more. I'm going to move on. Remember to write down what it is and what you think the variable measure is. Nominal, ordinal, interval, or ratio. You guys are going to get so sick of me saying that about 10 more times. All right. What about if we ask everyone whether they are left-handed or right-handed? So their responses are going to be left-handed or right-handed. Is that variable, dominant hand, would that be nominal, ordinal, interval, or ratio? Next one. How about if we ask everyone how long it takes them to cook dinner, how much time it takes to cook dinner in minutes? So everyone answers how long it took to cook dinner. For me, it's just a matter of putting it in my phone and getting Uber Eats to deliver. No, I'm kidding. Would this variable be nominal, ordinal, interval, or ratio? What about the variable heat measured in centigrade? So if we were asking in centigrade, uh, what, how hot something is, would we say nominal? Would the responses be nominal, ordinal, interval, or ratio? I am going to move on. So let's say we wanted to know the length of everyone's car in meters. How long is your car? And everybody goes out and measures their car and they give their response. Would that variable be nominal, ordinal, interval, or ratio? Couple more. I'm going to move on. What about the make of a car? Whether it's a Hyundai or a Honda or a Suzuki or a Cadillac or a Dodge or a Toyota. There's a lot of possibles. Would those responses for that variable make that variable nominal, ordinal, interval, or ratio? And reminder, if you feel free to pause if you need to, but I am going to keep going. You can unpause whenever you're ready. What about the size of a car, whether the car is small or medium or large? Would that be nominal or ordinal or interval or ratio? Okay, so I hope everybody took my advice and wrote it down because that is one way that we really commit to learning and going through the process of understanding this better. So here are the answers. For phone numbers, not sure what everybody has, but the correct answer would be dun, da, da, nominal. Even though they are numbers, they're not on a scale. They're not, we can't add one phone number to another phone number and come up with a third phone number. So they're just a category. It's almost like a person's name. And it's actually not a really interesting variable to study because there's one unique number for everyone. So we probably wouldn't really have that as a variable. Leap years. So it's every 4 years. It's actually interval. The reason why it is interval is because they are mathematical. The year 1900 plus the year 1900 makes it the year 3800. We haven't gotten there yet. But it is interval because there really is no 0 year. So there's no meaningful 0. Dental bills. This is the amount of money spent on dental work. That would be ratio. It is possible that somebody spent $100 or somebody spent $300. 100 times 3, we can do mathematical computation with our numbers, number one. Number two, the space between $1 and $2 is the same space between $12 and $13. So there's this equal distance between each measure. However, if somebody spent 0 at the dentist last year, it doesn't mean that's not a placeholder. That means they did not have the dental bills. So ratio has that meaningful 0, which makes it ratio. Exam scores, well, they are actually very similar to what I had just said. So exam scores are also going to be 0. They are tested, for this one, I said between 0 and 100. A score of 40 plus a person's score of 40 would equal 80. So we know that the distance between each of them are equal. The numbers are representing an actual numeric measurement. And if somebody scored 0, they did very poorly or they didn't take the exam, but there is a lack of score. It's not just a placeholder. For book ratings, whether it's great, good, fair, or bad, you can see that they are categories. And there is actually an order to them. So great is better than good, good is better than fair, fair is better than bad. Unless you're looking for a really like bad book to give someone you don't like. Who knows? But I try to make silly jokes, but I tell you, when you're making these videos alone, they don't always land. All right, it is ordinal. They are categories and they are in order. Great, good, fair, bad. There is an order. Or bad, fair, good, great, even in the other direction. There's still a natural order to them. Number of fast food items eaten. So ask yourself, are these categories or is it numeric? Is it categorical or quantitative? They are actually quantitative and it is ratio. If somebody has a 0, that means they did not eat fast food that week. Left-handed or right-handed. So are these numeric or categorical? Ask yourself that. They are categories, and you're in one of two categories, and there really is not an order to them. So that makes them nominal. This variable would be nominal. For time it takes to cook dinner, well, that is going to be how many minutes it takes to cook dinner. And that will make it ratio. And this is because we can add minutes. The difference between from minute to minute to minute is an equal distance. It's not subjective, it's a measure on a scale. And if it took you no time to make dinner, then you either have a great parent or partner or roommate that made dinner for you, or you didn't eat dinner. But that 0 is meaningful. It means there's a lack of time that it took to make the dinner. Heat measured in centigrade. Well, this was one of the few examples I could come up with for interval. And the reason why is because a 0 temperature in centigrade does not mean there is no temperature. It is just a placeholder between the positive degrees and the negative degrees. So same for Fahrenheit. 0 degrees doesn't mean there's no temperature outside. It's just that placeholder between 5 degrees and -5 degrees, right? It's a 0 is a placeholder. So that makes it interval instead of ratio. But always remember, interval and ratio can be treated the same. They are both quantitative. They are both continuous scales. So length of car in meters. How long is it? Well, that's going to be ratio. It's on that scale. There's equal distances between all of the measures. It's numeric. Going to be 6.5 or 2.1. Depends upon what kind of car you're measuring. Maybe we're measuring little matchbox cars or long limos. But that would, the responses, if we asked everyone the length of their car, would be ratio. Now, the make of the car, if people said Honda or Nissan or Jeep, those are all categories. And they are not in any certain order. So those would be nominal. And even if we put them in, let's say, in alphabetical order, if we manipulated it that way, that's not really a natural order. There's not a natural order to that. That's just organization. But just all the cars themselves, what make, those would not be in any order. So we would call that nominal. Size of the car, small, medium, or large, well, that has a natural order to it. It's subjective. The differences between small and medium and large aren't necessarily the same. One way that I always remember ordinal is I picture a race. And in a race, if you have winners, the difference between first place and second place and the difference between second place and third place can be very different. First place and second place could be a minute apart, and second place and third place could be 8 minutes apart. So first, second, third, there could be a variation of the differences between them or the space between them. Same with small, medium, and large. But small, medium, large does make it ordinal. Now, when you're starting your lab, what does data look like if we were to ask people all of these questions? This is actually a CVS sheet, which is what we see from Excel or a spreadsheet. We can also see something like this in Google Sheets. You have your ID numbers, and then these are the participants' ID numbers. This is one participant right here. This participant was ID number 1. Their age was 43. Their cohort, or probably birth year or graduation year, was 1975. Whatever 1 represents for their sex, whatever 1 represents for race. So race, sex, born, well, that's born in the USA or not born in the USA. They all have numbers, but these numbers represent a category. That does not make them numerical data. They're still categorical. For sex, male or female, those are categories. For race, white or African American, those are categories. We have put numbers to them so we can have a spreadsheet that is not that is able to do some math for us. But this is what you're going to be looking at when you look at Jamovi or when you start working with data. Each row across is a participant, and these are all variables. This is the ID number is not a variable ever. ID number, we never analyze it. It's just the way that we can organize our data. But age, cohort, sex, race, sexual orientation, born, number of siblings, age when kids were born, number of children, all of those are variables. So I hope this gets you ready for lab 1. And you can always go back and look at this and kind of practice again. I know we don't all have a lot of time, but it does help as you go through the rest of this class. You will be identifying every time we do a lab, you'll have to determine what your variables are, and that will definitely set you up for success or not success. I don't want to say failure. So you want to practice on variables. I hope that you have a great day ahead, and I'm going to try to find the stop record button. Feel free to reach out with any questions.